Hey guys, welcome back. It's time for our August reading wrap up and September TBR using the TBR jar. And this is also your monthly reminder that if you want to read with me, be in my Discord, join my book club. The link is always down below in my description. Just chose our September book of the month, which is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. We also do like buddy reads. We do reading sprints every single day. If you love reading, come join us. We'd love to have you. Here are some stats for the month of August. I read 16 books total, which is the most books I've ever read in a month in my entire life. So I don't know, I feel like I deserve a cookie or something. 1 YA fantasy, 11 mystery thrillers, that's crazy, 3 romance, and 1 memoir. So let me tell you about them and whether I think you guys should read them or not. First book I read in August was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I just got new piercings and like, bro, they're itching. And I love this one so much. I love a good YA fantasy. There is just like the tiniest little bit of sprinkle of romance in this. And it was like romance crumbs. Like, I don't even know if you could say full romance, but it was like romance crumbs. And it had me just questioning everything the entire time. I feel like this one is very slow burn fantasy. I don't even know if that's a thing, but it's definitely very storytelling driven. It's not a lot of high stakes. You're not going to be like clutching your pearls, you know, every step of the book. The Cruel Prince is part of the Folk of the Air trilogy. So this is book 1 and I have the other 2 books and I cannot wait to get into them. But I will say, if you're going to read this, just know that it's not going to be, I guess, like a Fourth Wing or other fantasy books like that. I definitely think it's worth the read. The whole time I was reading it, I was like, literally, what is happening? What is going on? Who should I trust? Who should I not trust? The little blurb on the back is really short, so I don't want to give too much away because that will just like ruin the story. And that's obviously the fun part of reading, is enjoying the story. And I gave this one 4 stars, so definitely a recommend for me. Then I read The Housemaid Is Watching on my Kindle. I cannot believe I read this in August. I feel like August, like when I think about the books I read at the beginning of August, I'm like, whoa, that feels like it was forever ago. But I gave The Housemaid Is Watching 4 stars. I really love the Housemaid series. I don't think that you could go wrong with any 3 of the books. Like, I like The Housemaid, I like The Housemaid's Secret, and I like The Housemaid Is Watching. Again, with mystery thrillers, it's so hard because you don't want to give too much away, but if you've read the Housemaid series, you get it. I think the Housemaid series is Freida McFadden's most loved series that she's ever done. And it did get me on a little bit of a Freida McFadden kick after that, because all the other mystery and thrillers I read were pretty much all Freida McFadden. I just fell in love with listening to the audio version of them. Like on Audible, I bought like a ton of extra credits so that I can just like listen to all the Freida McFadden books. If you want to know like my ranking, like tier ranking of them, I made like a TikTok video talking, I'll like link it down below, talking about like which ones I like the most. But like I said, that got me onto a little bit of a Freida kick because I loved listening to the audio and like doing things around the house. I feel like it made it so much easier and more enjoyable to want to do housework and like laundry and stuff and cleaning my bathroom, because I was listening to like this fast-paced story. Like, her writing for that is just perfect. Although I do like Freida McFadden as an author, I don't know if I would go out and spend a bunch of money buying all of the physical copies of her books, just because with mystery thrillers, you're probably, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but like I feel like I wouldn't read them more than 1 time because I already know the plot twist. Like, after I read it 1 time, it's no longer going to be mysterious or thrilling to me. Let me know if I'm wrong and if you've ever repeated reading mystery thriller books. But I'm always so hesitant to go out and spend a bunch of money on it because like the whole point is to have this suspense. And so if I ruin that for myself, am I gonna want to read it again? And if I'm not, then why own the physical copy? Especially if her books are not like 5 stars must have for me. A lot of them, I feel like average rating is like 3 stars. Then I read The Teacher by Freida McFadden, and this, if The Housemaid is right here, The Teacher is like right here. And I recommend, if you're gonna read The Teacher or even listen to it on audio, don't go look at anybody else's reviews. just go into it blind, because that's what I did. And I was so pleasantly surprised, because this is like also the thing with mystery thrillers. People are like, oh my gosh, the plot twist at the end. It just makes you, it kind of ruins it in a way, because then you know to be looking forward to it. It's better when you don't even know when the twist is going to happen. Like when somebody says like, oh, in the middle of the book when there's a twist. It's like, well, now I know it's not going to be as twisty, because now I know I'm supposed to be like preparing for it. Michaela in the book club recommended me the arrangement. She did not tell me like, oh, there's this at the beginning or this at the end. I just kind of, she recommended it. I went into it basically blind, and the plot twists were twisting, and I just appreciated it so much. But with the teacher, I will give you kind of like a background info on it just in case you want to know. We're following Eve. She is a teacher at a local high school, and at the school there is like a lot of drama around a student-teacher affair that went on. The student named Addie. Then there's a huge mystery. There's a huge mystery. What happened with the student-teacher affair? What's going on? Eve is having problems with her own husband. It's a whole thing. You'll just have to do the work and read the book. It was really good. I liked it so much. It's definitely in my top 4. No, it's probably my top 3 of Frida McFadden books. Then I read The Inmate by Frida McFadden. Just bear with me, guys. I really went on a Frida McFadden rampage this month. And this one we're following Brooke. She is a nurse practitioner. She starts a new job at a men's maximum security prison. One of the inmates is her ex. She's the only nurse like in the prison, so she has to treat everyone. And one day he comes in and they obviously recognize each other, and everyone's like, he's very manipulative, like he's trying to manipulate you, and she is giving him way too much information, giving him way too much access to her. You're following that storyline, okay? And I will say the one thing about Frida McFadden, and that just like everyone knows if you read her books, is there are gonna be plot twists, always. So that's the exciting part, is trying to guess like, how is Frida gonna twist this in the end and still make it make sense? That's the fun part. Then I read It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover because I wanted to finish reading this before I watched the movie. This was a reread. This was my second time reading it, and I rated it 4 stars again. I really like this book. I know there's a lot of discourse around it right now. I feel like if you're a reader, you understand. I don't know. I think that like there were a lot of people who don't read, were really triggered by this. They're like, oh my gosh, there needs to be trigger warnings on the front of it. And it's like, that's not how it is for any romance book that includes domestic violence. Like, they don't put the trigger warnings on the front. So sorry to tell you that. If you read and you read romance that has trigger warnings and domestic abuse and all of those things, I feel like you'll probably appreciate this book. And I think a lot of people do. I think it's why this book got a lot of people back into reading. And so I just appreciate it for the story that it is. And I think Colleen Hoover, she did the best that she could during the time that she wrote it. Okay, this book came out in 2016. So things were quite different in 2016 versus how they are now in 2024 with TikTok and just like the expectations of people and authors and trigger warnings and all of that stuff. And if you read the author's note, I feel like I remember the first time I read it, I was like, wow, that was a lot. And I think the author's note also gives you a little bit more perspective into her point of view when she wrote this. And so yeah, 4 stars. I really liked it. And if you have ever been like that's the thing too, is like when I went to go watch the movie, I was like, just statistically, there's probably more women in this theater that are with an abusive man, know an abusive man, have been around an abusive man, raised by an abusive man, than not. And so I will always appreciate a domestic violence romance book because I think it does a good job at portraying what it can actually be like. And Colleen Hoover is infusing her personal experience with an abusive man into this book, and I think like that's something I will always be so like proud and grateful that there are authors that are willing to do that, willing to expose themselves a little bit, because not only do they expose their personal life, but they also are exposed to so much hate on the internet and criticism. I'm happy that it got made into a movie because again, there were so many people I've already seen on TikTok that were like in cars, on buses, on trains, on planes, saying that they are now leaving their abusive spouse after watching the movie. So bravo, Colleen Hoover. I think she did what she sought out to do. Then I read The Perfect Son by Frida McFadden, and I rated it 3 stars. This one was much more cut and dry to me, not as suspenseful. And I also feel like I knew what was gonna happen from very early on. And I don't think that's wrong. Like, I think that in a way I do appreciate when I can kind of figure it out, because in my head it just makes more logical sense. But to me, for some reason, this one felt like it wasn't supposed to read as mysterious and suspenseful as some of her other books. So for those reasons, just like kind of adjust your expectations in case you're expecting like a really creepy book with like a little boy as the center of it. That's not really what it was. We're following Erica. She has a son who is the perfect son, and there has been a girl from the local high school that went missing. Her son was the last person to see her, and she basically suspects that her son has done the unthinkable, even though her son is like her favorite kid out of her 2 kids. Controversial, I know. So obviously now the police are like investigating him, but she's like obsessed with her son, and she's basically like, how far will she go to protect him? We will see. Then I read Ward D by Frida McFadden, and I felt like the entire time I was reading this one, again, had no idea what was gonna happen, but I still rated it 3 stars. I think that I didn't love this one as much because, I don't know, I felt like I was kind of bored with the setting, and it kind of felt like the same things were happening over and over again. Although 3 stars is still a rating where I would recommend a book. If I rated 3 stars, that is still like, I very much do still recommend it. It just didn't give me that like 4-star, 5-star feeling. In this one, we're following a medical student named Amy, and she has been assigned to the psychiatric ward over the night. She has to spend the night there, and she's there with another, I think just one other medical student that I think she was like dating or flirting with, or like he was her boyfriend or something like that. So she's on Ward D, taking care of all of these patients. Like, it's supposed to be a quiet night is what who's the guy that's like in charge of the level? The warden? Is that what it's called? The warden? I think I just made that up. I don't know. Basically everything that you could possibly imagine starts going wrong, and you literally the whole time I was like, literally what is happening? Like, I just honestly couldn't wait for it to be over because I was like, put me out of my misery. I just need to know what happens. Then I read Pines by Blake Crouch. This is part of a trilogy, the Wayward Pines trilogy. And this book, I literally have been sitting on this on my rating all month, I feel like, because I'm just like, I don't know what to really think of it. I think I ended up settling on a 4-star because it's definitely not a 3-star. I liked it more than a 3-star. But I would say it's a solid 4-star. It's just different from my typical read. Although this is mystery thriller, it's a different like twist on it. We're following Ethan Burke. He arrives in Wayward Pines, Idaho, on a mission to locate 2 federal agents that went missing in Wayward Pines, Idaho. As he's going, he gets into a massive car crash and ends up in the emergency room. So because of the accident, he has no ID, no briefcase, no food, no shelter, nothing to his name. Multiple days of him trying to get out of this town, trying to figure out what's going on, and it's always just like masked in a haze, masked in confusion. He's in pain, he has all of these injuries from the accident, and he's like trying to run away from the hospital, and I feel like just the entire book just feels like you're in a haze. Like, you're just like, there's no clarity ever whatsoever, which made for honestly like a very uncomfortable read. There's no respite for Ethan Burke ever in this book, and I feel like for some reason while I was reading it, it just made me kind of feel exhausted. But I'm like, I literally was like, is that what it's like reading a book written by a male author? I was so just like, please can we be over with this already, because I need to feel some kind of satisfaction. There's no satisfaction in this book, okay? It's just constant confusion, constant thirst, hunger, starvation, pain, confusion. I'm like, please, please. Oh, also, he's married and has a kid, and he can't like get in contact with them. He's trying to call them, like can't, just the whole time he was just going through it. So it makes for a very interesting read. I do recommend it, but it's just, you know, you have to kind of get used to reading a story like that. I am excited to read the other 2 books in this series. Then I read Matthew Perry's Memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. Obviously, I rated it 5 stars. It's so, so good. If you've not read or listened to it on audio, I highly recommend it because he narrates it, which is just the best, like when a celebrity or whatever narrates their own memoir, because it just feels like, one, they fully consented to the story, 2, it's in their own words, so you can really hear the emotion. Like every book talk video ever, when they talk about memoirs, they talk about listening to it makes it better. And I was like, wow, I think I'm officially gonna be a part of that group that's like, yes, listen to memoirs, because it really changes, just changes everything. I cried so much listening to it. It goes between his childhood and adult timeline. Obviously, you just get a huge behind the scenes look into like who Matthew Perry is and why he was the way that he was and why he struggled with the things that he struggled with. There was also a huge update on his, I don't even know if I can say it on YouTube, but like there was a huge update on what happened to him recently. So I feel like it's the perfect time to kind of get the backstory so you can understand like what's happening now in the news. I think the most amazing and beautiful part was how often he mentioned God in his memoir. When I heard about his passing, I did not know that he was Christian whatsoever. I never saw that in the news, but he said, God had shown me a sliver of what life could be. He had saved me that day and for all the days, no matter what. He had turned me into a seeker, not only of sobriety and truth, but also of him. He kept talking about the omnipresence of God and how God met him where he was and saved him. Like, this was a man that struggled so deeply with addiction. And he also gave like all the way to being 30 days old, what I guess he's kind of saying triggered that addiction when he was an infant. And it just makes you have so much compassion and understanding, not only for him, but for a lot of people who struggle with addiction, because you just never know. Back when he was a baby, things were much different. Doctors were much different. They would prescribe drugs and different treatments than they do now in 2024. And so it just gives you, more perspective. It gives you more understanding, and my heart was just like aching. It was really sad, but the silver lining is that he was saved and he did believe in God and he loved God, and now he is at peace and no longer hurting and no longer addicted to anything. And so that just made it like all the more of a beautiful story. Literally praise God for saving Matthew Perry's life, because boy did he need it. Like, Matthew Perry was saying that he just always wanted to feel better. He always just wanted to be better and do better, and he just wasn't able to on earth. And so such a beautiful story. Then I read The God of the Woods and I rated it 4 stars. This was a mystery thriller. This one takes place in a summer camp, and one of the girls has gone missing, and the girl who's gone missing is actually related to the family that owns the entire summer camp. So I guess they're like super rich, and as they're trying to find this girl, all of these stories, crimes, secrets are all revealed as they are trying to find her and figure out what happened to her, why she disappeared in the middle of the night. And I really liked it. I rated it 4 stars. I don't know if I said it already, but I feel like The God of the Woods is a book that everyone is talking about a lot lately because it's called The God of the Woods. I thought it was going to be kind of like paranormal, but it's not at all. It's very mysterious. It was very thrilling. It was very suspenseful, but it's also a big book. It's like 500 pages. So just know that going into it, this is not going to be like one of those quick mystery thrillers. Like, it's a story. It's a full story, and not every second of it is going to be super suspenseful and like page turning. I still really liked it. Then I read The Wife Upstairs by Frida McFadden and I rated it 3 stars. It was not as thrilling, shocking as I wanted it to be, and it's also kind of like a Verity dupe. If you read Verity by Colleen Hoover, I think I liked Verity more, although I did read Verity a long time ago. I wonder what I would think about it now if I read it all these years later. And this one we're following the husband, and then the wife is obviously upstairs and she can't speak and she can't walk. Her name is Victoria. She was in a really bad accident, and so he has people like at the house helping take care of the house. So he's like a house cleaner, or he has like a couple house cleaners, and then he hires Sylvia, which she's like super young and hot. Other staff is like warning her to be careful, like the wife is gonna get jealous and all this stuff. And then while Sylvia's working, Victoria gives her her diary, which basically goes into how she met her husband. And as time goes on, like in the diary, it's kind of revealing that he's abusive, but like typical Frida fashion, there's always going to be a twist. It's not going to be what you think. And I really did like it. 3 stars. It wasn't like my favorite just because I wished it was more suspenseful. I wish some things were maybe a little bit different, but still good, and I would still recommend like listening to it or like reading it on Kindle. Then I read The Locked Door by Frida McFadden, and it's about a little girl. Well, it's kind of like dual timeline, I think, a little bit. So when she was little, her dad always had this like locked basement door that she was never allowed to go in, although she remembers like sometimes hearing like screams and like weird smells coming from downstairs at the room, and she would like try to open it and the door would always be locked. And then she ended up doing like some creepy stuff while she was younger, and so that's kind of giving like she's psycho. But she's older, she's a doctor now, her father is in prison, he was caught for his crimes. Her patients are now all disappearing. And so the police think she's the one that's doing this to these girls. And at her place as an adult, she also has a basement. So then we're just following that storyline. I really like this one. I would give it 3 stars. I honestly would maybe even give it like 3.5. I kind of liked it. But again, I feel like all of Frida's books, like, although I really like them and they're good, they're not like, wow, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna be talking about this forever. It's kind of just like very simple, easy entertainment, and I appreciate it for what it is. Then I read Do Not Disturb by Freida McFadden. I would say probably out of all the Freida McFadden that I've read so far, which I think is like almost all of her books, although I think she just released 2 more recently. This is probably my least favorite, although I would still recommend it because I did like it, but I think out of all of them, it was my least favorite. Again, I don't really like the ones where the setting is just at the same place the entire time. Like I kind of get bored and I'm kind of like, okay, just tell me already what happens. Like I'm ready to move on. So this one we're following quite a few characters, but mostly Quinn, who is now on the run from the police. Like it just starts off, boom, right from the beginning, she's on the run. She's trying to make it out of town, but for whatever reason she can't, so she stops at a motel, and then the entire story basically takes place at this motel where there's only one other person staying there, and then there are the 2 owners, a husband-wife couple. Then there's a snowstorm and she's basically stuck there with the creepy other tenant or person who's staying. They're staying, but they like live at the hotel, and then the owners. And so they basically, in the entire story, we're watching her trying to get out of this motel, but like they will not let her leave. And she's trying to figure out who she can trust, etc., etc. I liked it, not my favorite, just because, again, I don't love the single setting. Like, please get me out of this hotel room. I'm tired of being here. Get me out. I will say the plot twists in this one though they were pretty good. They were pretty good. Then I read Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This was our book club book of the month for August. And also, if you guys didn't know, that if you are part of the book club, you get an extra reading vlog for the book of the month, which is where I like give all of my thoughts, feelings, all of that. I rated this one 3 stars. Not my favorite romance of all time. I feel like people made it seem like this one was super deep, just a big page turner. I felt it was so hard to continue picking this up. I felt like it was a little bit unrealistic, and just overall really not my favorite romance ever. I would still recommend it just because obviously so many people liked it. I may be the outlier. I will say pretty much everyone in the book club really didn't mess with it. There were quite a few DNFs for it. I think there were maybe like 2 or 3 people that like loved it. Maybe 2 people that like loved it. Some people who were like, eh. And then there were some people who like couldn't even get through it and DNF'd it. Kind of all over the place, but meh. It was kind of meh to me. I thought it was going to be deeper. There were some parts I loved and thought were cute. All over just very meh to me. Then I read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Wow, this book took me on quite the adventure just because the first couple pages are very out there. Whoa, 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 whoa. I don't know if that was like her hook and she was trying to get like people thinking that it was going to be like a crazy, wild, smutty book, but I would not say that it was. I feel like I've read books that, no, honestly, this is kind of spicy. Like if I could rate the spice rating, I'd maybe say like 3 chili peppers out of 5. I would say that the parts that are spicy, but they're also easily skippable, and the parts that aren't spicy, like just the regular story that we're following, I really liked it. It's not spicy at all. So I don't know, it's kind of hard. Like there are some scenes, but it's not overall, at least in my opinion. And I did rate this one 4 stars. We're following Ava and Shane in this story. They fell in love when they were in high school, but they both came from very, very broken homes, lots of trauma, lots of sadness. And I will say it's very like heart-wrenching as you're reading it. They have this amazing night and he's like, I love you so much. Like I promise I will be the reason that you will want to wake up every morning and live. Like he was groveling for her, like he loved her. The next morning he was gone. And so now all these years later, they're both authors. She's been basing her male character off of him, and he's been basing his novels around his experiences with her. So they've been kind of like writing back and forth to each other, but never actually speaking until they both end up at the same event. Everyone can just see the connection, see the sparks flying between them, even though she still doesn't know why he left, but he has come back to tell her why he left. And it's just like, I just need to get off my chest. Like, I just want you to know why I've been gone for so long, why I never came back. And then he's just gonna bounce. but obviously they end up falling in love. I love this because it's not the like cliche fall in love where everything just like falls into place. They still have to jump over so many hurdles and get through so many traumas of the past. She has a really difficult history with her mom, and so there were just so many layers to it. It's very deep, and if you can make it through the first 40%, I definitely think it's a book worth reading. I will say the beginning was very slow for me. Like I was like, ooh, I almost DNF'd it because I was like, I don't know if I can get through this. Like it low-key was putting me in a book slump. And then like once I got to the 45% mark, I was cruising. I was breezing through. I wasn't flying through. At no point in this book was I like absolutely flying through it. For some reason to me, I just was reading it so slowly. Although I liked the story. I don't know, I had a very interesting experience reading this. Overall though, I do recommend it. I think the story was so beautiful, so perfect. It takes place over 7 days in summer in Brooklyn. Ava has a daughter, so you get that, like her daughter's a little bit older. She might be like 11 or 12, so you get that dynamic between them too. You get like this generational trauma aspect. I had a lot of layers and I really liked it, so I do recommend this one. The last book I read this month was The Coworker by Freddie McFadden, and I rated that one 3 stars. Obviously another mystery thriller. This one was fun to me because the FMC that we're following has one of those personalities that you almost just kind of hate. Like it's hard to root for them because you kind of just hate their personality. They're kind of a bully, they're kind of rude, but then like she talks about how she learned from her mistakes, so then you're kind of rooting for her, but then she's also like still kind of a terrible person and you're like, I don't know about this. Like she's one of those girls that was just like so evil and so mean in high school, and now although she works a corporate job, like she's still just as mean and evil. So I thought that was fun because I haven't, of all the Freddie McFadden books I've read so far, I haven't gotten that like main character energy from her where she writes them a little bit different. So I thought that was a fun little aspect. But again, it was 3 stars. I liked it. I do recommend it. We're following obviously all of these co-workers. One of them has gone missing. We're trying to figure out what happened to her, and it's fun. The plot twists are fun. It was good. I don't know if I'm ever gonna read 16 books in a month again because the wrap-up is exhausting. I've been filming this wrap-up probably for 45 minutes. But as always, now we're gonna go to the bookshelves and do our TBR for September. It's time to pick our TBR for September. Books that are already on my TBR. We have Remarkably Written Creatures. This is the book club book of the month. I have Viola Davis' Finding Me. This was on my TBR last month and I started reading it but I haven't finished it. Along with The Nightingale by Krista Hanna, also already on my TBR because it was on my TBR last month. I started reading it but I haven't finished, so I will definitely finish this month. And then out of last month's TBR, these are the 5 books that did not make the cut, unfortunately. These were on last month's TBR, but these are the ones I didn't finish out of the 9 that I had picked. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 4 books I either started or completely read. So these are gonna go back on the shelf. Time. Let's see. First one, I think we're gonna choose 9 again. It's just good to have options, you know? A new to you author. You know who's new to me? Vari McFarlane. This is called Just Last Night. It's a romance, a contemporary romance. Eve, Justin, Susie, and Ed have been friends since they were teenagers, now in their 30s. The 4 are as close as ever. Thursday night bar trivia is sacred, and Eve is still secretly in love with Ed. Maybe she should have moved on by now, but she can't stop thinking about what could have been, and she knows Ed still thinks about it too. But then, in an instant, their lives are changed forever. In the aftermath, Eve's world is upended. As stunning secrets are revealed, she begins to wonder if she really knew her friends as well as she thought. And when someone from the past comes back into her life, Eve's future veers in a surprising new direction. They say every love story starts with a single moment. What if it was just last night? Sounds good to me. Okay, time for book number 2. This one is one person on the cover. Oh, you know what would be good to read this month? Okay, wait, I actually want to see if The Wicked King had a person on the cover. It does not. Two Twisted Crowns does have a person on the cover. So I think I'm going to go with this. This is the sequel to One Dark Window, and I really like this fantasy little duology we have going on. And I've been wanting to read the second book, although I wonder if I should read... Washa's being quite loud. Although I wonder if I should reread the first book. Should we do a reread? Wait. Okay, One Dark Window also has a person on the cover, so I think we might do a reread. Book number 3, Enemies to Lovers. Here you go. So much ants. Look. Ants? We're trying to find enemies to lovers. I had a little intermission. My kids needed me. Enemies to lovers. I also feel like we could find, oh, wait. Is this enemies to lovers? Because I feel like enemies to lovers, you immediately think romance, but what if we found like a fantasy enemies to lovers? I just picked this up, Ace of Spades. Actually, Kaylin found this for me at the bookstore. And I really want to read it, so we'll see. But it's definitely not enemies to lovers. What if we read Bloodmarked? Like, that could be kind of fun. Because I'm pretty sure that is enemies to lovers. Because Selwyn Kane is the enemy, right? Is she gonna fall in love with him? I don't know. That's the thing, is we don't know. Okay, let me, no, we won't do that one. The Wicked King, because there were definitely some droplets of romance. Again, this is not romantasy, so I don't know. Okay, this is a good option. Crossroads by Devney Perry. I feel like this could be a good option. They're not necessarily enemies like they would be in like a fantasy type of book, but she has to return to the ranch where I think she like grew up. She was in love with this boy and then life tore them apart. Now she has to return to the ranch that she said she never would return to. And he like does not want her there at all, but he needs her unfortunately. So I'm pretty sure that's kind of giving like enemies to lovers or like I hate her but I love her kind of vibe. So we're gonna add this to the stack. Number 4. I need a good one. A book with the name on the title. That's a good one. Okay, my immediate thought was Nora Goes Off Script by Animal Monaghan because I really like that book. I also have Jade City, if I wanted to read that, because Jade is obviously a name. Oh, you know what would be so fun to read? Oh my goodness, another Daphne du Maurier book. This is My Cousin Rachel by Daphne du Maurier. Oh my gosh, I've been wanting to read this so bad. I picked up this book when me and Faith went to Cape Cod for a little trip in January. Oh my goodness. If you guys didn't know, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier is my one and only 6-star read. I loved her writing, like something about it. I was literally devouring it. So she's going on the TBR. Book number 5, a celebrity memoir. Okay. I already have Finding Me by Viola Davis, and I also obviously read Matthew Perry's memoir. So I'm honestly doing pretty good in the memoir section. I think my immediate thought went to I'm Glad My Mom Died by Janette McCurdy. I also have Lauren Graham's. This is like a memoir, yeah. Have I told you this already? Her team actually invited me to an event she did in Dallas, and so I bought her book. It came out I think during the pandemic and she wasn't able to tour with it. Oh, it's also signed. Slay. Okay, honestly, I think I'm gonna do Janette McCurdy's. I've had this on my TBR probably since 2021. I think I bought it right when it came out because if you didn't know, I have my own set of mommy issues, so I was just wondering, oh, 2022, so I've had it since it came out, 2022. And when I order it on Amazon, I cut the package open, and so now there's a cut down it. Anyway, I love this cover. I love the yellow and pink, and I'm excited to see if I like relate to this story in any way or not. And I heard it's like absolutely gut-wrenching, so can't wait. Book number 6, More Than Two People on the Cover. Ooh, we should choose an Ellen Hilderbrand book because there's always people on the cover of her books. I kind of want to read The Rumors. Let's see if this has more than 2 people. Oh, it does! Oh wait, is it more than 2 people? Oh, more than 2 people. Ugh. Womp womp. Oh, Summer of '69 has lots of people on the cover, so this would be a good option. Let me check really sure to make sure this one I don't need to like read anything before it. And this one is about 4, I think it says 4 siblings experience the drama, intrigue, and upheaval of the 60s summer when everything changed. So that sounds so good. And it looks like I got this one at Half Price Books, so a little used book moment. Book number 7, Husband Chooses a Book, but my husband literally, can you guys even see that? My husband literally just left, so I'm actually gonna have my kids choose a book instead. Hey boys, come here. My little minions here. Okay, what you guys are gonna do is you guys both have to agree on one book for mommy to read this month, okay? You guys have to agree. So here's the things though. I've already read all these books right here, and I've also read all these books right here. So you gotta pick something from up here, over here, or all these over here. But you have to agree on which one, okay? Which one do you like? That one?
I agree with
that one. Okay, so Carter picked A Novel Love Story, and Kai picked Their Vicious Games. Why did you pick this one?
because I like how it's made and I like how the colors are.
Okay, why did you pick this one?
Because it looks so beautiful.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, I think I actually picked both. I like both of them. Okay, I'll read both of them. Thank you. I couldn't just pick one. Two more. This one is no pictures on the cover. We're getting like down to the nitty gritty of these prompts. No pictures, so just words, I think is what I meant by that. So the candy house would be a good example of this because there's like there's no objects in it. It's just these lines and the words. Okay, this is another good option. We have Anniebot by Sierra Greer. I kind of want to choose Anniebot. This one, there's like this robot woman who is with this man, and she essentially tries to be like the perfect robot for him, but it's like his needs are never met, or she starts to kind of become human. I don't know, I can't really remember, but that's all I remember about it, and I kind of want to read this. Okay, our last one, finally. Even amount of pages. How random of a prompt. Like, okay, girl. I recently bought a box set from Neil Gaiman, and I really want to read Coraline this month, and there are 192 pages in this book. So looks like Coraline. I'm so glad I didn't have to go through a ton of books to figure out which one. And this is actually like YA. Like, look how big. Not even YA. This is actually like a children's book. But I heard that the book is really good. And these covers are so stunning. So we're gonna go with Coraline. This is the biggest TBR of life. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, actually 14. 14 books because I am gonna do a buddy read of The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna with some of the girls in the book club. You will not be seeing me outside of my house this month because this is where I'll be. I'm so intrigued to see how many books I can get through of this TBR because this is actually crazy. That's gonna bring us to the end of today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and please comment your favorite book that you read in August because I'm always down for the Rex, and I think other people would appreciate it too. But anyway, love you guys. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.